Good evening. Welcome to Earth to the Other Side. My name is John, and I'm speaking tonight with Mark Patterson, who had his NDE at the age of 16. Mark, it's really great to have you on the show, and I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Welcome to the show.
John, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be with you and to exchange some ideas and have a wonderful conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. So, on that note, let's hear about your near death experience. Take us back.
Sure. I think the first thing I always talk about is that when I was a child, I always knew things about people. I always had that sixth sense. I had encounters with aliens and ETs and angels ever since I was, 4 or 5 years old. And I'd always see the aura, the lights around people. And unfortunately, you're told, don't talk about that. Why do you know that? You shouldn't know that. Don't ever say that again, or you're called crazy. And my dad, who was a holy roller, Jesus zealot, he always told me that I must be possessed. So unfortunately, you learn it's very conflicting because you know what you're experiencing, you know what you are seeing. You The feedback is that you're shocking people with what you know, so you know that it's true, and yet you're told that you're crazy. You're told that shut up, don't talk about that. And so John, unfortunately, I turned to drugs and alcohol by the time I was 12 or 13 years old because I didn't want to feel it anymore. I didn't want to know things anymore. I didn't want to hear the voices anymore. I didn't want to see the lights anymore. And I found that if I had that vodka or whatever it may be, I didn't, everything shut off. And so it accumulated at a high school party. In fact, it was about 38 years ago at this time in 1986 at the Canterbury Inn and Suites in Coralville, Iowa, which is still there. And so I was trying to, or at least I thought I was trying to impress my high school classmates by chugging a fifth of vodka, four beers, two glasses of wine, and about three or four wine coolers in about 90 minutes. And so my body went into cardiac arrest and I was dead, unconscious, in a comatose state from acute alcohol poisoning. My skin was purple, green, and black. And I was completely on the floor of the bathroom in the hotel suite there. And the first person that greeted, well, the first thing that happened is you leave your body. And anyone who's had a near death experience, John, will tell you that when you first leave your body, it's scary because all of a sudden you're aware that you're not alive anymore. You're aware that your body is down there and you are somewhere else in another dimensional plane and another dimensional reality. So Russell, who was my grandfather, he passed away probably when I was around 3 years old, and he informed me that I was going home. So I thought that I screwed up, and then you go into the light, and in the light I was greeted by seven angels. They were 14 feet tall each, all female in appearance, and they showed me, and anyone who's also had a near death experience to talk about this life review that happens. We do really review our lives. And as they showed me my life, and of course, anytime that I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, they just asked, how does that relate to love? And everything in life is an opportunity to express love. Forgiveness means forgiving your love away. And that's what every opportunity in your life is for. It's an opportunity to forgive love. It's for giving your love away. If you're always out getting the car, the house, the Rolex watch, whatever it may be, if you're forgetting things, you are forgetting who you really are. And you see, as a child, I would dream over and over again that everything I wanted. I didn't go to Disneyland until I was like 37 or 30 years old, but Disneyland, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, feeling love, feeling that you belonged, that you were wanted. I would dream every night about my bedroom closet, that those feelings of being loved, being wanted, all those things that I dreamed about as a child, I'd find within my bedroom closet. Well, 40 some years later, you realize that the metaphor of that dream was about everything that you want is already within your heart. right here. It's inside within you. And so then during that near experience, they introduced me to a being that was 30 feet tall. I've been to Egypt a few times. You go over to Abu Simbel, you see these beings that are 30 to 40 feet tall. The giants in the Old Testament talks about the giants in those days were the giants. They saw that the wives of that or the Nephilim. So this 30-foot being had all this love, compassion for me. It knew who I was. It was male in appearance. And then the angels in this being, because when you're on the other side, everything exists now. It's a multi-dimensional universe. Everything is simultaneous. And they talked to me about sacred geometry, sound, healing through sound, and the Melchizedek priesthood. And there was a lot of information that was downloaded to me. And in a moment, or what we would say in a flash, like a flash of lightning, um, I witnessed the soul that was in my body from the time that I was conceived to 16, gone with my grandfather Russell. And then this other being that was 30 feet tall came in, formed an icosahedron, a platonic solid, and came into my heart and brought me back to life. And so I'm called a walk-in. That's what but there was an exchange, and a walk-in, or some people would say it was another aspect of me from another time, another place that came down through time dimensional reality. I've said this many times before that on page 262 of Barbara Brennan's book, The Hands of Light, it says that future lifetimes can be placed in the energetic field and can be taken on completion at the end of a lifetime if an individual so chooses. So, John, I always joke about this. I always joke that, hey, I evolved 5 lifetimes with a fifth of vodka. Please don't try this at home. You may or may not get the same results as I did, right? So, there was this change or transfer from who I was to this other being, and for 3 or 4 days, everyone seemed like to be like this big to me. I really didn't know where I was at or what was going on. And by the fourth or fifth day, all of a sudden, everything clicked into place. I was Mark. I was a sophomore at Iowa City West High School. That was my mom, and all of a sudden, I took on the identity of Mark. So, that's in a nutshell what happened. But the other thing I would just say over and over again is that you are loved. The love that heaven, God, whatever you want to call it, has for you, you cannot fathom. It is pure peace, pure joy, pure love, pure knowing. You know that you're one with God, that there's this oneness. And it's always about a journey of remembering that what we call God is within you. That's within everyone. It's not only is it with everyone, but within everyone, it's everywhere in all places. And we keep being taught that you experience God in the afterlife. You can experience God right now, right here today. Whatever God means to you.
Yeah, well said. That's true. Thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting. You're saying that you're a walk-in. I've actually had another gentleman on the show who's a walk-in. I find that pretty fascinating. So, in your case, you're saying that it was a version of you that walked in, so to speak, or was it another soul that walked into Mark Patterson?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I don't know if I'm ever going to know the answer to that. I tend to agree that there was another aspect of myself that was beyond time and space that came back through time and space and came into my body. But from the appearance of what happened to me, it was definitely a different soul. It was definitely, there was something that left and something that came in. And
Right.
for simple purposes, I just go with I'm a walk-in,
Hmm.
that I walked into the
So,
body.
does that mean that since you're walking into a physical body with a brain, um, does that brain retain its memories and then you tap into that, or how does that work exactly?
I think you just described it perfectly. It's like, the um Barbara Resiniak talks about the identity of the individual is stored in the blood and bones of the individual. And when the walk-in took over, why it took some time to restore consciousness or to adjust to being Mark, it 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 got it. It got that, who it was. It's like, you have a car, you drive a Cadillac or whatever it may be, and you have driver A and then you get driver B. The car is the same, the engine's the same, but the person driving the car is different.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're 16 at this point.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so how does this actually, before I get to that, because I was gonna ask about your parents and your family, how this went over with them, but but I'm curious also as to when you first came to,
Yeah.
were you immediately presented with all of the memories of Mark Patterson? Or
No, it took a few
you
days.
mentioned it was over time, right?
It was over
How
time.
much
Yeah.
time exactly was it though?
About 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
So initially, did it just sort of come off as maybe you had a bit of amnesia or that
Yep.
type of thing
Yep.
as a side
Absolutely.
effect?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think at any point did you think that's what was actually happening to you as well before you came to the realization that you were a walk-in?
No, I didn't know what happened. I didn't tell anyone about what happened to me. I just didn't talk about it. I didn't share about it. It was so, I mean, when you're 16 and you're going through all the changes from becoming a boy to a man, you're in
Yeah.
high school, you're awkward, you're going through all these awkward emotions and feelings anyway, and you had a bunch of classmates who all saw that you were unconscious, dead on the bathroom floor of the Canterbury Inn. And all of a sudden, boom, you're back. It's kind of weird, to share that experience. I did tell my best friend, Dean, who is a chiropractor and acupuncture in Iowa City, Iowa. He's still there. And I told the girl that I was dating in Charleston at the time. There were really the only two people that I knew. And then, I've told this many again. I've told the same story since 1997.
Mm.
I've never deviated from this story, and I never will. So in 10 years, almost 10 years later, I get a phone call from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I don't know how she got my number. And she described verbatim in detail my near death experience. She talked to me about the being that came into me. She called me a walk in. She described that they talked to me about sound, sacred geometry, healing through sound, the Melchizedek priesthood. And then, John, here's the kicker. She knew about the dream about my bedroom closet that I had as a child. And she talked to me about that. And so for me, it was, validation. And it was about a year after I met her, I came out publicly and started talking about my near death experience. I spoke in August of '97 at the Mastering Life Center in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was going to undergraduate, and then I went on to graduate school there as well. Yeah.
Fascinating. So how did she come about knowing all this?
Well, she was very psychic, very intuitive. I guess there's people that do Akashic records and, tap into this information. And she was told by her angels to call me. And I
Wow,
mean,
that's
yeah,
cool.
I,
And
I met her. I did meet her in person.
oh, you did,
Sure.
yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. Her name was, I'll just say her name was Deb. Unfortunately, I've not heard anything from her since 1999.
Oh, what a
I don't,
shame.
I don't,
Mm.
I don't know what happened to her.
So the term walk-in, I'm just writing a note here because I don't want to forget to ask you this.
Sorry.
The term walk-in. So where did you come about this term? Like, I mean, obviously I've heard of it as well, but I heard through someone else I interviewed. Like, I'm curious, like, when was the first time you heard it, or did you come back knowing this term?
Right. So I didn't know the term walk-in until probably I was 18 or 19 years old, when a childhood friend of mine, Toby, uh, his um, his mom, Patty Lou, introduced me to Dick Sutphin. Dick Sutphin wrote the best-selling book, the Simon and Schuster book, "You Were Born Again to Be Together," and he talked about soulmates, reincarnation, and that was the first time I ever heard of what a walk-in was. I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened to me, Yeah.
Do you know like it's gonna be a weird question, I guess, but
There are no, I've been asked everything, so it's
yeah,
like,
seriously. um, I'm just curious. So the soul, okay, well now you're Mark Patterson, I understand that, but this soul that walked in, do you have any information, background on that particular soul?
so the soul that came into me is what we would call a very highly evolved being that came back through space and time. I mean, what I experienced and what I remember is very similar to what Drunvalo Melchizedek talks about, and having to, like go through the sun and go through different dimensional realities, and having to move large stone blocks to open doorways and gateways to come back through time and space to be here.
Hmm, yeah. So let's talk about your parents and their the reaction to all this. Like, how did you open up to them about this at some point, and when?
Okay. He never accepted the experience. He thought I had some type of like demonic or evil experience. And he finally accepted that I had crossed over and had that I went to heaven and came back. My mom, she still doesn't know what to think of it. And I mean, my grandmother had 18 grandkids. I'm the only one that left. All my family is still in Iowa. So they don't really know what to think about it. They don't really know, because when I was a kid and I was seeing, ETs and things, and the UFOs, in my right, flying up and down my street above the place where I grew up at, um, they didn't see them. You know, they thought I was crazy. It's kind of like the story they talk about the Native Americans. They at first they never saw the pilgrims who crossed over from Europe, because it wasn't in their dimensional vibration. It wasn't in their dimensional consciousness. So there was nothing to reflect that awareness back to them.
Yeah.
Because everything, I mean, all consciousness is dependent on light and frequency, and what you see is what you are able. The light spectrum that you is reflected back to you is what you see.
Hmm.
It's like, when the Mayans call this an illusion, not because it's not real, but because we only see about 2% of the light spectrum. I mean, there's colors that bees see, there's sounds that dogs hear, and then people like me,
Shrimp.
or that see auras or lights, or the elves and fairies, or the earth realms. It's because we just see a greater spectrum of the light frequency. I
What?
mean, to answer your question, my family does this. My family doesn't relate. They don't know how to relate.
So I wondered, like, if there's ever like a juncture of time in this experience. I hate to use the word time because obvious reasons, but when one soul kind of said, "Oh, is this what's happening?" And all right, adios, amigo, and you take over, kind of thing, to put it in layman's terms, like the crossing over of souls, or there's just no memory of that.
Well, I do remember seeing the soul in my body from the time I was conceived to conception leave with Russell, my grandfather, and then the one coming in. That was simultaneously. I mean,
Okay,
it
so you
happened
remember
organically.
actually seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's really cool. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Michael Newton wrote the book Journey of the Souls. That is a phenomenal book about
I have that here
near,
somewhere.
yeah, near-death experiences and soul agreements and soul contracts and things of that nature. I mean, it's really an amazing book.
Have you ever done any past life regressions? Well, that's the question. I mean, with this new soul.
But if I've done past life regression since 1991. And I trained with Dick Sutphin back in the 90s in Sedona, Arizona. God, I saw him 91, 92, 93, 94. I trained with him like 4 years in a row. And he's the one that trained Brian Weiss, who's probably the most well-known person that does past life regression.
Mhm.
But have I ever done that with the soul that came in? I'm just kind of somewhat aware of the background, yeah, of the soul, yeah.
Are there, Major differences between, I mean, I guess, has anyone told you, like, I don't know, you're just not the same?
No, actually, I was as a teenager, I was very quiet and reserved, and the walk-in made me even more quiet and reserved.
Going back to the NDE, when it happened, when it occurred at the hotel room, and there was, I don't know how many people were there, but obviously it was a party. So, did anyone call 911? Did you end up in the hospital that evening or not?
I did not. I was basically unconscious for at least 22 minutes, maybe longer. That's what I've been told in my dreams. And I was unconscious for 22 minutes. And they finally, at some point in time, threw me in the back of a pickup truck and took me to where I was living.
Yeah,
The walk-in kind of brought me back to life, so there was no need to, you know,
right. That's true too.
resuscitate me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious, because I know
And
alcohol
I've
poisoning.
never, I've never felt that much energy before in my life. I mean, the amount of energy it took to awaken a dead body, and whoa, it's like they're, jolting you. I mean, you get jolted.
I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing all this with us. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you'll come back on because there's a lot of other things that we can go into. Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
So,
But thank you so much for this. I really do
yeah, I just
appreciate it.
wanted to close. If anyone, I've been doing past life regressions for 30 years, and I'm available to do them via Zoom.
Cool.
My website is mark-patterson.com.
Sounds good. I'll put it in the
All right.
description box below,
All right.
and they can hit it up there if they want to as
All
well.
right. I appreciate you,
Wonderful.
John. Thank you so
Appreciate you
much.
too. Thank you so
Bye
much,
now.
man. Much love. Take care.
Thank you.